time since we have been in Vietnam. Last time we kind of went south to north to back south again. This time we're going north to south. Hoan Kiem Lake. It's a very nice walk at night or during the day. It borders a bunch of other little different neighborhoods, and it's just really nice. Lots of friendly people down here. And we're gonna go and have some amazing vegan banh mi at this restaurant that we have vivid, unending memories of. Our very first meal of the trip is going to be at what we formerly knew as Vegan Banh Mi restaurant, but now it is called Bao An Vegan. And it's a literal hole in the wall. They have so many different options now, so we're just gonna load up and show them all. Spring rolls and pillow cakes. Pillow cakes are so delicious. Bubbly pastry on the outside with mushroom, cabbage, carrot, crispy and bubbly texture, soft, yielding, beautifully cooked veg. Now we've got a mixed noodle dish with soy protein jerky, fried tofu, mushrooms, peanut, lettuce, and a whole bunch of delicious noodles and veg. We have an array of banh mi, shredded mushroom, 2 of those,
And that's tofu ball.
and then tofu balls. All of this food is gonna cost like $10 US. And 7 orders of stuff. Tofu banh mi, very savory, hint of garlic, hint of sweetness, soft, crispy flaky bread, marinated cabbage. Oh my god, pate, delicious. The mushroom banh mi has fresh mint in it, which sounds weird, but is really, really nice against the savory hit of the mushrooms, and also some fried shallots as well. Well, it was a very tasty meal. It's missing some things that I loved from the last time, but that's okay. We'll still give it a strong, you gotta try it at least once. Pillow cakes, still the best. Try those. Just having a little morning walk in Hanoi. We're gonna head to the dentist, and then we're going to head to Hoa Lo prison. Seeing everybody out sweeping the sidewalks, breakfast foods being served all over. Fruit vendors are out in full force already. This 0 degrees iced green tea with lemon is one of the best tasting bottled drinks I've ever had. You can really, really taste the fresh, bright taste of green tea. And it's just perfectly sweetened, nice hint of citrus. Really, really good. They've got a sort of Asian-looking statue of Lenin here in what is known as Lenin Square. And they call him Lenin. He actually looks a little more Vietnamese than he looks Russian, in my opinion. Let's get close and take a look. I'll zoom in on the face right now. I'll zoom in on the face and you can see that he looks kind of like a Vietnamese guy. Fun little thing to see when you're walking around in Hanoi. There we go. Lenin making a larger than life appearance here in Hanoi. Here is Hanoi's famous train street. That's a major thing to see if you're in Hanoi, although people do find it touristy, but it has its own charm as well. I am not sure what's going on here, but good on her. Well, it was just one section that was closed, so now we're back. Now we're back. This bird should never be in captivity, but the myna bird is one of the best talkers. They can replicate human speech incredibly well, so we'll look for some out in the wild. He's so cute. Yeah. Belly rubs. Is that good? More? More. Okay. There you go. Who's a good girl? Who's a very good girl? Attention, all 1,000 plus of my subscribers. I have found Long Wang. If you need Long Wang, it's clearly in that building. It's directly beside Fuck Dong. You are welcome. What do you think of that lesson?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. So let's check out the Hilton Hanoi, the famous prison, the Hoa Lo prison. This is notable for where John McCain, the POW of the Vietnam War, was held, but it has a longer history than that. It was a prison for dissidents. Thank you very much, Kama.
Thank you.
Hoa Lo prison was constructed by French colonists in 1896 on the land of the Phu Can village. This village was the only destination in the Thang Long Citadel where kettles, teapots, and portable stoves were made. Hence the name Hoa Lo, which means fiery furnace. So considering the time frame that these were made, they're quite advanced and nice. Very nice. Hoa Lo prison, being technically called fiery furnace prison, is a fun type of irony, I guess. This is talking about Cell D, one of the largest cells of the Hoa Lo prison, where the French colonialists jailed male political prisoners. So from 1930 to 1945, it was known as the Division Politique. It had a tiled roof, no ceilings, and solid walls painted all with black tar. It housed only 40 prisoners originally, but there was a time when it had as many as 100. It was brutally hot and stuffy, and the sick were given priority and allowed to lie near the floor to make it easier to breathe. And then in the winter, when prisoners without clothes would feel frozen to the bone, they would lie in a fetal position with each prisoner's chest pressing against another back to keep them warm. Drinking water vessels, coconut bowls where the utensils were just sections of the coconut itself. Let's talk a little bit about what they ate. Old, stringy pork, boiled old buffalo meat, soybean jam, moldy dry fish, boiled soya curd, white radish, morning glory, the worst of the worst that they could find. Most prisoners had heart edema that were caused by eating moldy rice, and then there was times when prisoners died 40 a month. This is how a lot of people were kept, shackled by one or both legs, just sitting like this all day long, all night long, all the time. So you can see here the kind of conditions that people were kept in. Shackled usually by one leg, two if you were extra trouble as a prisoner, held mostly for political crimes, which was essentially just revolting against occupation. Prisoners were forbidden from learning political theory, and prisoners would use the toilet to hide secret documents from the guards. So the documents were put in metal boxes, covered in carefully tied nylon bag, and put inside the waste boxes. At the end of the day, after the guards took roll call, the inmates would pull the documents up for training, clean them off, and keep on propagating the revolution purpose. Absolutely ferocious people who are definitely versed in how to resist. This is the only nation that has defeated occupation from China, France, and the United States. Now we're in the dungeon. Anyone who broke the regulations were sentenced to the hell of the hell. That was a dark, narrow dungeon kept separately, put in stocks, and they had to eat and relieve themselves on the spot. All the prisoners confined here were puffed up with edema, their eyes were clouded over, and their bodies were covered with scabies because of the lack of light and air. And this is a look inside one of these solitary confinement dungeons. It looks just absolutely horrible. And as you can see, it was angled backwards, so that would have been horrible to try to endure. With this specific almond tree, the prisoners found ways to cure dysentery and diarrhea, to clean wounds, and improve their health generally. But they also used it as a way to plan against the enemy and discuss measures on fighting. Man, that's nuts, eh? This tiny underground sewer was how 16 people escaped. Man, they must have been teeny and skinny.
Yeah, because that's where the cut bars are.
There's the cut bars there. Then they shimmied through this. Wow. This underground sewer, 100 Hoa Lo political prisoners escaped through in 1945, and they all reached different locations and ended up becoming the party and government leaders. And gosh, what a bold set of people to escape like this. Now we've made our way into a spot mostly for female prisoners. 4 small cells, 270 square meters, and holding up to 300 female prisoners, including their children. Terrible misappropriated rations. They had it worse than almost anybody, by the looks of it. The prisoners here did organize classrooms to teach the children about the resistance, and several of them would be in here all at once. About 10 or 15 people living in just this small room. It's about the size of the RV I live in. These are executions, where they would display the heads of the executed people. Here is the box that they took the people's head around in, as depicted here. These are torture devices used by the French. This area of the prison are the condemned cells, which essentially means death row, completely isolated, and this was to prevent death row inmates from communicating with the outside, because obviously if you're sentenced to death, you get pretty desperate to make sure your message gets heard. The cell was built with a wall almost half a meter thick, and they were painted with black tar to purposely make people feel gloomy and cold. Prisoners who were sentenced to death were detained here for a minimum of 10 months from the day of being sentenced at the court of Assizes. Prisoners could lodge an appeal or claim for sentence reduction. However, to eliminate some death row inmates, particularly the ones whom French considered dangerous, they were executed only 2 to 3 days after the day of sentence, many of them. For 200 female prisoners, they would get a dipper of water. A dipper is basically, if you could imagine, a full coconut shell of water. That's how much water they were allocated to bathe every couple of days. So they would share water and do different things to try to make it go a bit further. But it did cause shame and embarrassment. It smells like kind of powdery cement. It's incredibly dark and dank, and considering now it's like ventilated, and it still would just be gross feeling. And of course, the French love to use the guillotine. Closer and closer to the Vietnam War, we start seeing the Vietnamese take over this prison and use it for POWs. So hereafter, this is what the Vietnam War prison known as the Hilton Hanoi was called. This is where John McCain was held. They were actually using the prison here to try to make those pilots, those POWs, contemplate life through the eyes of the Vietnamese, and they did their best to try and convince them through probably some torture and a lot of education about the cost that the war had on the Vietnamese people. In 1972, there were over 400 individual and 90,000 mass bomb shelters in Hanoi alone. Each citizen was granted access to at least 3 bomb shelters, one at their home, one at their workplace, and one outside in the street, so that they could be covered at any time. It's John McCain here. When they were released from the prison, the Vietnamese people made them bags and shoes and manila suits, and made sure that they were well dressed to be returned home. Here they are getting a special commemorative painting. And this here is the memorial area. There are some ceremonial places to burn incense and make offerings. Some beautiful magnolia and other flowers here. The memorial here is very solemn. The way that they approach their own history is usually with a lot of respect. Their sort of independent spirit really comes through, and the way that they handle it and the way that they display it is just very frank and very open. So I respect that. Now, as you can see from some of these toiletries and uniforms, the prison conditions for Americans were much better historically than they were for Vietnamese. Here's John McCain. He was detained in 1967. He was parachuting into Chuk Pak Lake, and he was caught. This is a picture of him after ejecting the people surrounding him and capturing him. They asked for a volleyball net, and they got one. There it is there. The second floor. So here is a lot of commemorative stuff, nameplates, and ways to document what occurred, as well as some additional exhibits. This section has various artifacts and photography around prison life. So that pretty much completes the tour. Admission is $50,000. per person. The audio guide is 100,000 per person. So we thought, just with all the reading and overhearing the guides, that would be enough, and I think it was. But the audio guide definitely gives a full comprehensive view. Pretty easy to spend between 1 and 3 hours here, depending on your level of interest and how thoroughly you visit.
More to see as we step back out into Hanoi, so be sure to join us. For Vegan Everywhere, I'm David.